All right, folks, so today in this video, we're going to be hitting two birds with one stone. So I'm in quite the conundrum per se, right? So bugs are starting to affect the corn crops. Also, the corn is not tall enough for the pole beans to kind of climb up and do their thing. So we're going to get into some creativeness, and we're going to build, and pretty much it's a very low cost bamboo trellis for the pole beans to grow on. We're going to harvest the corn, and then we're going to cut back the corn. And I know it's kind of like something different that you usually don't see inside of like a Three Sisters garden, but it's what I'm going to have to do and have to pivot in order to make this thing work. Because if I leave the corn up, the beans are not going to have enough a room to grow, so I'm going to have to put a trellis regardless. And second, the bugs that are attacking the corn could possibly translate later into the other crops that we're trying to grow, which is the Seminole pumpkins and possibly the beans. Basically what we're fighting is caterpillars, or a type of caterpillar that mainly affects corn and other leafy green vegetables. So in order to, I guess, kind of beat that whole situation, we're going to do something a little different. So in this video, one, we're going to harvest the corn. I'll show you how much corn I got and how it looks. And B, we're going to build a bamboo trellis from scratch, and I'm going to show you guys how I'm doing that and kind of show you the tools that I'm using in that. And hopefully maybe down the road some of you folks might find this valuable to where you can build something that's going to be very to little to no cost, I guess, as long as you have the proper tools and stuff like that. And I'll show you what I'm using to build this trellis, the step-by-step process. So the video might be a little bit longer than usual, but there's a lot of information I'm trying to pack in there, and also harvesting the corn and cutting down the corn and separating the beans that are kind of at a specific height already. Because if I don't do this now, the beans are going to get intertwined with the corn. It's going to be a lot harder to separate the two. But you'll see once I'm done how it all plays out. And like I said, as always, I'm always looking forward to reading your comments, because how do you see that? Do you think this is, what's the word I'm looking for? Do you see this as an effective means to kind of solve my issues with the bugs and also the pole beans? All right, so let's kind of get into harvesting the corn real quick, and then we'll get into building the trellis out of bamboo poles that you can buy at any of your Home Depots or Lowe's or whatnot. They're very simple poles, and I'm going to cut them down to a certain size and show you that whole process. So just to kind of give you an idea, like I said, we had success. We have about 21, 22 ears of corn that we saved from the bugs. I'm trying to open this up so that you guys can see the inside of it here, because everybody wants to, you know, see what happened with the corn, or the good portion of the corn, right? So there we go. That is the inside of that corn there. And like I said, this is going to save me a lot of headaches and losing the entire, you know, crop of corn by the bugs. So here we are with a solid at least 21 ears of corn. Not bad for my first time growing corn. Okay, so let's take a look at the garden now that I've gotten rid of all the corn. Basically all I did was cut it down as far as I could, and I don't want to pull on it because I don't want to, in case these beans have some sort of root structure, or any of the other plants in here have any type of root structure, I don't want to create an issue. So I just cut them down as low as I could, and eventually they'll die off and add into the compost of this garden bed. So here we are. This was the most difficult one. Hopefully I can save them. You got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. What do we got here? 9, 10, and 11, 12 pole beans that are growing. And you can see they're a little over 12 to 14 inches in height. And of course, there's our Seminole pumpkin. So we got 2 of those. I'm going to probably thin that out to just 1. This is the big guy here. And I already did that down here. This is the other Seminole pumpkin right here that's starting to grow, as you can see that. And so we don't want to impede that. And then over here, this one seems to be growing a lot faster. And I already thinned this one out too. They all had like, they had 100% germination rate, but this is the other one. So with those 3 in the center, we're going to let that kind of take over this whole garden bed. And then let's go ahead and build these bamboo trellises. And just in case you guys were curious, like with some of the leafy material, I'm going to go ahead and chop that up and mulch it up a little bit. The old corn with the bugs in it, I'm not going to. I'm going to dispose of that, but those are the ones that were infested. And this I'm going to actually put into a compost bin. For some of you folks that ask, this is the compost I'm using by Vivosun. They gave it to me for a review a while back, but I never got to do the review on it because of the fact that it was missing some things and I couldn't get a hold of them in a timely manner. So I ended up buying a second one, but because I really wanted to see if it worked. But as you can see, that's where we put all of our stuff to compost for next year's soil. It's a nice little thing here. You kind of just spin it like what is that game show called with pets? One of those folks, where you just kind of spin that around there to mix it on up. So let's kind of get into building this bamboo trellis. You can use a measuring tape or something like that. I'm just going to use this because this is actually 4 foot, and I can just bring it down here and make it easy for myself. Now for cutting the bamboo, there's several different ways that you can do that. You can choose something like this, maybe if you have a silky saw, or even some pruning shears like I was using over there on the corn. You can use that as well. I'm also going to use a couple of clamps, a level, black marker, and some bank line. Now if you don't want to use bank line, another thing you could also use is your gardening wire here that you can use to put this together as well. So depending on what you have laying around and whatnot. This is a little side project I have going on. But all right, so let's get into building this trellis before we lose daylight. Let's try to make life a little bit easier. So much quicker, so much faster. So if you're wondering, this is probably the easiest way to cut all these poles that you need to do is with something like this. All right, so what I'm looking for, folks, is I'm looking to where my beans are at, and that's kind of where I want to build my trellis at. So I'm going to stick the first pole right here at an angle down into the ground, just to kind of give me an idea where I'm looking, and then kind of evenly space these out a bit. Which this is just going to give me an idea of where I'm putting my poles at and where the beans are at, to kind of give me the best coverage. And this is going to come together nicely. So using my garden ties, you can see here how I'm going to end up making this teepee here, and I'll move around so that you guys can see it a bit. And I'm going to kind of follow that line all the way through with the rest of these and try to get it as even as possible. All right, so now that I got my first pole set up, I got one down the center that I'm going to tie into these guys for reinforcements. And then we're also going to put some poles across here, one there and one lower on both sides. So I'll do 2 poles here, 2 poles there, and then the center pole, and I'm going to tie this all into this whole situation that I got going right here. All right, so here's where the clamps are going to come in handy to kind of hold this other bamboo pole across this here. And then me being OCD, here's why I have a level. It doesn't have to be absolute perfect, but I like to try to get as close as possible. And then I'm going to tie these to this frame here, which you can see then it'll kind of reinforce that whole entire structure. And like I said, we're going to add one more across the bottom. But as you can see, these clamps are going to be helpful in doing that, because if you're trying to do it by yourself, it can be a bit complicated. All right, folks, so we have almost a finished product here. You can see how that looks from the outside as I back up a little bit. Kind of pan around a little bit so you can kind of see what I've designed here. And it's not absolutely perfect, but as my wife always says, it's what you put into it, and if you love what you're doing, that's all that matters. And if it's functional and it works, you should be happy that you've created something that you enjoy. And this is one thing I truly enjoy, is coming up with different ideas for the garden and cost-effective ways to do things, kind of like how I did these beds here and whatnot. But next thing we want to do is we kind of want to focus in on our beans, our pole beans, and see where they're at and look at their height, and then kind of see where they fall in this thing. Like this guy over here, it's already finding its home. It's already starting to find its way around the pole before I even gotten started. And no, I did not do that, folks. It's just, that's what plants do. They acclimate to their surroundings and whatnot. Now, some of the ones that are kind of in the center, we could run another pole straight down, or we can run a string. I'm thinking about running a pole myself, put a couple of the poles down the center for some of these that are right here. And then I don't know what I'm going to do those guys down there, just because those were the most, I'm going to try to save them. I'm going to do my best to save these little guys here. As you can see, the stems, trying to get them off that corn was a bit tough, but I'll do what I can, and we'll see here in a couple of weeks how this pans out, as well as the Seminole pumpkins. I'm really looking forward to that aspect of it. So we got all the corn harvested and whatnot, and now on to the next phase, the pole beans and the Seminole pumpkins. I know it's a little different than seeing the beans wrapped around the corn. So that being said, one thing I learned, and then like I said, everything is a learning lesson when you're doing stuff like this, is grow taller corn, grow corn earlier, especially in Florida, because if not, the bugs will destroy your crops. If you're trying to grow organically, you can use pesticides and probably prevent that. And there's other things that you can use in regards to worms, caterpillars, and other beetles and insects like that. But I'm happy so far where we're at. So I made a few alterations. As you can see, I stuck a couple of poles here and there to give them pole beans some stability. Get it? Added some poles for the pole beans, and I'm going to let them find their way around these poles as it grows into this trellis. Now, what's really cool about this trellis, folks, is you can reuse it. You can move it around, you can adjust, you can do a lot of these things with it, because like I said, we just used some garden ties. Let me get close into that. Some garden ties. Evidently, it's not going to focus on that. Some garden ties, some affordable bamboo. I think you can get six or so of these. I think they're like $1 a piece, or maybe less than that, to be honest with you, in these poles. But just for a few bucks, and build yourself. And some people are going to ask me, is it sturdy, Gray? It's actually pretty sturdy for what it is. And like I said, kind of want to show you what I did with some of these beans just to get them going, helping them along. And I'm assuming all the beans will find their way up this trellis. Let's go check on the injured beans. Hopefully this is going to give them a chance. Kind of let them wrap around there, and those guys over there. So this is a continuation of our Three Sisters without the corn. And some of the folks out there had warned me about the corn too, and luckily I had a backup plan. But so far so good in regards to the pivot point in this garden. And like I said, I'm really looking forward to the Seminole pumpkins as well. So, all right, folks, so that kind of wraps up building a bamboo trellis on a budget and pivoting when you have issues in the garden. Make sure that you have backup plans so that if anything does happen to your garden, you have ways around it. You can salvage things, be it inclement weather, be it bugs and pests, whatever it may be. You have some sort of backup plan or option to pivot from there, save whatever you can, and move forward with that. Other than that, I'm going to enjoy the rest of this beautiful afternoon and get dinner ready. And we're actually having corn on the cob with dinner tonight. But anyways, folks, remember, you are not alone. This is GreyMan. I'm out. I'll see you guys in a rebound, and God bless.